All set?
All set, we'll call the meeting to order and have the pledge of allegiance. Now that we have a flag, pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Anything we need to add, subtract?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay,
Move as written.
second,
Second.
second. All in favor? Alrighty. Public forum, public comments on non-agenda items. Anything, Jack, or are you just here to be our audience?
I do have
You
one
have
item,
one.
unless
Yeah.
town manager is planning to announce it. Well, hold it back.
No,
Go ahead.
Last Wednesday, the state put out the results of testing from all the schools in the state of Maine. Some 500 of them. 300 of those are elementary schools. And guess what school is the very top performing school in the state of Maine? You're sitting there.
No kidding. Top performing.
Mildred.
Nice.
They're the number one in English language arts and number two in math. Is that good?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you know where they came in and, was it science, the other one?
They had an asterisk by that name and by our name, and Katie was gonna look into it. Presumably the number of students tested wasn't large enough, but that didn't make any sense to me. We've always been tested in the past. The district did quite well in science. MSK was right up there, very near the top, and Searoad was very high. All the schools, whole district did quite well.
Well, didn't the Sea Road just get a blue ribbon school,
For being one of the very best
top schools in the nation?
We also, Notre Dame outperformed Searoad
Yeah.
in the testing. So, is that news or?
That's
what?
great
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. Thanks,
It
Jack.
is, it is.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Approve the minutes of November 28th.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor? And all ready?
I'll abstain.
Oh, okay. One abstention. And committee and board reports, the planning board meeting?
Yeah, I didn't know if they had one, so I just posted it, Dan. They
I-
did, but I didn't.
Oh, you were there.
Tom?
I was there.
Yeah.
For two public hearings they had on, first on the reorganization of the zoning ordinance, and secondly on the potential revisions to the growth ordinance. They're gonna be sending us and requesting us to have the zoning amendment, which is really formatting.
Right.
There's no substantive changes, except for one, I think, it's for the plan. But they want us to put that forth to the voters in the special town meeting, rather than wait for the annual town meeting, because there's gonna be a variety, they assume, of substantive changes in the ordinance proposed with respect to the residential districts particularly. And I guess they're a little concerned about overwhelming the voters with too much stuff. So, since we might be considering a special town meeting for something else, seems to me that would be the opportune time to do it. As far as the growth ordinance is concerned, a number of people were there. Jack was there, Sam, Linda, Luke, all wondering, there was a proposal to reduce the number from 40 to 28 or 26, and there was no consensus on the board at this point in time to do that, so they're gonna revisit that issue. There was a few members missing who apparently supported the reduction, but weren't there to kind of articulate why. So the planning board is still gonna be considering.
One of them was a past member too, wasn't John wanted to cut that down, I believe? But he's not.
I don't know, he wasn't here before. There was 2 members, I think, missing. I didn't get apparently the vote to reduce it to the 26 or 28, so for the 3 votes. But anyway, so that's what happened.
I have one other thing to relate to the planning board. I did receive resignation of Rick Pomelo onto the planning board. He indicated to me work-related and the time commitments to the planning board were just too much for him. So at this point, I was thinking that I'd wait until after the new year and then we begin another opportunity to try to find somebody to fill that spot.
Great. Manager's report, the audit report, final?
Yes, I've provided you a copy of it, the cover and the copy. Please, at your leisure, take a look at those. Are your copies to keep. If you do not want to keep it, you can always use an extra copy in the office, so if you don't want it, just give it back to me and we'll set it aside in the event that we need it in the future.
Anything exciting in it?
Not particularly. As I mentioned during the preliminary, Lisa Denner did a great job of having things prepared and set for them. The audit went extremely smooth. I think it tells the tale, so I don't think there's anything in there that's earth-shattering at this point. I attended the Kennebunk Port Chamber of Commerce meeting on the 8th of December. I generally do that periodically. I don't go every meeting. In the event that I don't have anything to share with them at this particular meeting, I shared with the sewer efforts that we're making, the fact that we had a pre-application for a 15,000 square foot fitness facility on Sands Road. That's in front of the planning board at this point. I try to keep it related to perhaps business ventures or things that would be related to the chamber that would be business related, so they could have that information. I'll continue that unless I have strong objections on the board that I should be attending every one of those meetings. I just don't see it as being necessary to each one, but I think it's important to go to the ones that we have things to share. I know my colleagues in both Kennebunk and Kennebunk Port do attend on occasions. We had the new town manager interim town manager from Kennebunk at Mike Pardue at the meeting at the last one. So
You watch their agenda to see if there's anything on the agenda?
Yeah, they send me the agenda. Okay. Generally, it's agenda items that are related to what they're doing as activities and things to that nature. I think it's a great group. I think they're doing great things, and I'm happy that Arundel is part of that group because I think it's important. I think it's bringing more interest and more advertising and activities to Arundel that we may not have had if we weren't related, involved in that group. So.
When do the cottages close? I know Christmas prelude's over and Fire and Ice is
Not
over
quite
at the end
sure.
of December. Is it the end of December?
I thought it was after the Christmas holiday.
Yeah, I think we changed it to
It
December.
must be,
It's in the middle of this month.
Yeah.
We changed it to December, so.
yeah.
Is that right?
I know he's turned off his water fountain, so figured he was
Trying to get close
to
to
drain
freezing
some
now.
pipes, yeah.
I attended the Leadership Exchange in Portsmouth, New Hampshire on Friday, the 9th. It's a meeting of the managers of both Maine and New Hampshire. In this particular one, we had 2 sessions just related to various degrees of looking at things in leadership and how leadership decisions that are made at local levels could impact a variety of people within the community, and how important it is to try to keep those avenues of discussion with the public and with the elected officials open so everybody understands what's going on. The antidote to the meeting was very, the gentleman who made a huge presentation was a guy from the workplace insurance company Primex from New Hampshire, and what he related to the group was this young woman who in 2015 with her husband came up to the presidential range and was going to do a single solo hike from one end of the presidential to the other, and her husband was going to pick her up on the other end. She neglected to look at the weather conditions before she left in the morning, and unfortunately by 3 o'clock in the afternoon she had passed away because of the results of the decisions that she made and the information that she had when she made her decisions that affected, and we related that to leadership, which I thought was an excellent thing. I found him very compelling speaker, and somebody that I think our local group here in the York County group is going to try to get to come here, and then we'll get a bunch of people, elected officials and department heads to go listen to his presentations. I think it was very impactful.
Might be nice to include the chamber in that too, and ask them if they'd like to be included.
The Muscular Dystrophy Association contacted me. Evidently, I had an anonymous, somebody put my name up to be part of fundraising for this event. So I guess I'm going to be in jail on Wednesday the 14th.
What time?
I think it's noontime down at the Federal Jacks.
I beat you, I'm gonna be in jail at 10:30.
Oh, okay.
So you can come in and pay to get me out of jail.
All right.
And then I'll go in and pay to keep you clean out.
So anyway, if you're so inclined, it's tax deductible. If you want to make a donation to get me out of jail, it's fine. But I just put out a blanket email to friends and colleagues that I know to raise. But
That same anonymous person, I think, nominated me, so.
oh, we don't know who that is, though, do we?
Now, same person maybe who sent that
Letter.
letter, yes.
Finally, on the 15th this week, I'll be going to the York County Advocacy Group in Sanford. This group is a group made up of managers and county leaders, and we try to get the county's legislative delegation to attend so we can discuss with them any municipal matters that impact all of York County. The advocacy group has hired a lobby firm from Eaton Peabody to represent our interests in any things that are related to York County, say transportation issues. Right now, we're talking about jail funding, location, and, you know, they've already secured that, but the funding and other things that are related to York County government. So I'll be attending that on Thursday, the 15th.
Is the benefit site guaranteed?
As I understand, yes. Yeah, that's what I've
I
heard.
that, I didn't know
Right.
it was official.
They're looking at, one of the things that was mentioned to me, and I think Jack mentioned it to me when he was in my office this past week, was that they're looking to put in a minimum security facility somewhere near the jail for folks that are not at risk, but drug-related activity, and trying to see what kind of funding is available. My only concern with that, and Jack and I expressed that, was that oftentimes when the state gets involved in the funding, they begin to dictate who's going to be taking those bills in that secure facility. Jack tells me that I think we're going to try to stay away from the state funding and see what other what grants and activities may be available to get that facility up and running to help some of those incarcerated people that maybe need that help. So that's one of the things that we'll be discussing on Thursday.
If I may, could I elaborate on that just a little bit? It is intended for drug addiction, opioid addiction, and those who have been sentenced and are seriously on drugs. And the plan is to put it into that wooden building that's right in front of the jail as you go in. It will be a 24-bed facility, and the intent is for people to be in there for 6 months, up to 6 months. So it's for people that are really having problems. They would go in for a 7-day detox, and then move to the other 24 beds on an as-available basis. The funding, they're doing their darndest to stay away from federal and state funding so that they think they can do it right by using proven methods and without the constraints that the government's put on. They will be looking to come to the towns for money. The cost estimate is $1.6 million per year, and they're looking in the vicinity of, without holding to it, about $500,000 a year from the county in the form of taxpayer increase. That, I think, works out to about 4 cents on our mill rate in that vicinity. It will, basically will take people that are suitable for the program through a vetting process and move them in there in lieu of being in jail, but they'll be right next. I don't think it's a guarded facility, or I don't think the plan calls for that, but if you read, it's a one-time and out operation. They get you back in jail, so it looks like a very promising process. Unfortunately, we need it. Can I give you just a couple of statistics on the school here, if I may? The testing, they're not doing it by grade level. I mean, they do it by grade level, but they combine it for the school. And the results we get are for the sum of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. 80% of the kids were satisfactory or meets or exceeds results in math, and 78%, I'm sorry, 80% in English and 78% in math. And that's with a free or reduced lunch population in the low of 29%. Really pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
That's all I have under manager's report this evening.
Old business, draft policy.
Yes, I provided to you, this is the second of 2 drafts. The first one I did up and I shared with both the CEO and the planner, and then I put together the second draft. And really what I'm looking for this evening are once you review it, what changes, what other things that we may want to add to it. Once I've done it once, I know that the planner has given me some other information that he thinks is important to add to the thing. So my task on tonight will be to get your input, create another draft to bring forward to you at another time for further review and consideration, so. But the purpose of trying to put this together was just to try to, in my view, was to try to lay out some procedural steps that the administrative staff will take in terms of enforcement matters related to these subdivisions. And I've tried to lay out a minimum of steps that I thought would accomplish that goal, and to try to keep these things moving forward in the event that that we have something that occurs that we need to step in. At least we have some sort of procedure in place that we will use early on in the process to try to get some compliance. So what I did was I put policy number to it, I titled it, I put a scope there, purpose to define the procedures to be used in order to provide the town's code enforcement officer those approvals granted by the Arundel Planning Board and the conditions / findings of fact that apply to that approval. And then I just laid them out. Procedure 1, I wrote down, once finally approved, approval is granted planning officer prior to the code enforcement officer notification of the approval, any and all conditions and finding of facts that apply with the approval. So in other words, the planner will provide to the CEO in written form what those conditions are and those findings of facts early on in the process.
Can I just make a comment there? And those findings of fact should have on there somewhere the date that they're presented and the signatures of both the presenter and.
It's all written in that, when they read out the findings of fact, it's all stated, the date and everything is all stated there.
Yes, but when the planning office takes that finding of fact and gives it to the code enforcement officer, that form should have that date on it. In other words, if I'm gonna hand it to you today, that should have today's date on it and your signature and mine. I gave it to you, you signed for it. That means, yes, it's been done.
Yeah.
And it's been done today, not 2 months down the road or a week down the road.
Yeah,
You
where,
know,
is there any level of accountability on either end as far as, I'm not, you might know this more from a planning timeline. Because I can tell you, procedure number 1, if you don't put a timeline on that, it's never gonna make it to the CEO from the planner. So,
Yeah.
you know, within 1 business day or within, 48 hours or 2 business days.
It
or-
shouldn't be,
And I don't know if that might be written somewhere in planning.
It is not, I
Yeah.
mean,
that's a good
That's a
point.
good
right.
point.
so, you know,
A time
to
frame.
Jason's point should be within X amount of business days from planning board approval.
Yeah.
Right, so once the planning board approves, they have X amount of business days to give this form. Planner has X amount
We'll
to give to the
provide to the
CEO.
code enforcement officer within 5
They're gonna
business days.
approve it that evening,
Right,
and then it's gonna be up to the planner to write up the conditions and the findings of fact, and then present that.
so those conditions and findings of fact are already written.
Correct.
They're written before the planning board, and then they just read them, so they're already there. And if there are any additions or strikes, he can kind of put something together, and the planning board at that point makes a determination whether they want to add those conditions or what have you. So all that's already written ahead, and it's already scribed when they make that meeting. So he should have them that night.
Do we find that the planning board goes ahead and changes these in that evening?
There are times when they, so Tad will put together his findings of facts, and there are times.
Proposed findings.
Huh?
The proposed findings.
Proposed findings of fact, right. He'll put together the proposed findings of facts, and there are many times when they make those they make changes because of, the wrong lot number, the wrong whatever, or they might want to add something. And then sometimes he'll propose some conditions, and then the planning board will either strike those or add other conditions. So the issue here is the conditions is what we're concerned about. The findings of fact, those are just actually, this lot on this date, the planning board did this, blah, 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 blah. But the issue is making sure that those conditions are followed. And he'll put some conditions, but the planning board itself normally puts most of the conditions.
Well, I wouldn't think it would be, in what you've explained to me, I don't think 2 business days is unreasonable to have that information from the planning office to the code enforcement officer.
Absolutely, because.
2 business days after final approval. Until it's been approved by the board, you just don't wanna take findings and conditions that Tad has prepared, and
Right.
that's not, the planning board needs to be done.
Yeah, so they don't read the findings of fact until they're ready to do final approval.
Okay.
So they'll go over the findings of fact and the conditions, that's done for when they do final approval.
But sometimes even the plan is not signed on that night because of a variety of reasons, so you've gotta be signed.
True, sometimes
So your point is, it needs to be finally
Final,
approved?
the plan needs to be signed.
To that final signed approval.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. 2
Yeah,
days
that's-
after the final signature.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I
they'll
wrote
bring in the
down.
Limewire that night, and they may make some changes, and
That's
then they
right.
have to go back and get another one.
So then you're really looking at it, then you're looking at a 2-week turnaround at that particular point to get that final approval. And so the developer really doesn't have final approval until that is signed.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, sometimes they'll give approval based on the conditions, and then it's just, the applicant has approval. The print just isn't signed yet, and they'll sign it, but they give them the okay to go. They just haven't signed it because they gotta make some small typos or make some changes on the.
Do they make a motion in a second to that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So as long as final approval, I think 2 days is reasonable to turn that around. I see that as being unreasonable.
Well, it's
Yeah.
gonna, since it always happens, 95% happens on Thursday,
Right.
Yeah.
Jim's not there on Friday.
and so that,
Well, 2 business days.
Right.
So he
it's
does
so
it
it's
Friday,
gonna be the following
Friday,
week.
on Monday he wraps it up and gives it to Jim, and they'll have a discussion. One of the things that I talked about here in number 2 is that the approval conditions and findings of fact will be supplied to the CEO in writing and in a form where all conditions and findings of facts that will be require oversight by the CEO or a third party are clearly identified. I think there are some things that the CEO, particularly on the design and review of a road being put in, that he doesn't have any expertise in that. He has to wait for the engineer to provide him feedback that things are done according to the plan. So that's why I put in that third party. Does that seem reasonable at that point?
But all that paperwork coming and going needs to be dated and signed when that's done.
I
By
agree.
everybody involved, whether it's the highway engineer goes out there and he's examined the road and he goes to Jim and he goes, okay, the road's fine. And Jim said, well, wait a minute, I need that from you, I need that in writing, I need today's date on it, I need your signature on it. So you've got a paper trail with everything.
I think he gets that
agree.
today.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
he
he
gets
does.
that today.
He gets written reports from the
Yeah.
engineer.
Right.
3, what I wrote down was, once received by the CEO, a review will take place of a list of conditions and findings of fact. So I think I want to make that more clear that the CEO and the planner will actually sit down, say, if we get it on Thursday, Friday he writes it up, Monday they're going to give it to the CEO, they'll sit down, they'll look at this, they'll go all through it to ensure that everything is there and who's going to be responsible for what within the scope of the approvals. If the CEO in his or her review of the conditions of finding fact determines that these conditions or findings or a portion thereof fall outside his or her authority to enforce, contact will be made to the planning office identifying the concern. And what I was relating to there was the engineer, and if we have a third-party review authority that's looking at it, providing that information, I want to make sure that everybody knows that that's going to happen, and then who is that going to be, and are they on board and ready to go?
I can tell you number 4. And I don't know how to word this, but and I apologize up front if this comes out rude or whatever, but I ran into an issue with number 4 because CEO did not have the authority, I take that back, CEO, it wasn't within the CEO's scope of practice, I'll call it, to review something that was put in front of him. So he put it back to the planning board. Nobody on the planning board, including Tad Redway, had any idea of what was in front of them. So what ended up happening was I hired a third party to present exactly what number 4 is basically outlining. Third party has money was paid to a third party, which was an engineering firm, did the investigation, presented a plan, it was presented to the planning board. Planning board, it was over and above anybody on the planning board, it was like gibberish to all of them, including Tad Redway. So he passed it off to the CEO. The CEO more or less looked at it and said, this has nothing to do with me, and gave it back to the planning board.
So we were bouncing something that should have been,
Because of that happened, now the planning board requested that an additional third party had to review what was put in front of them, so, which came out of the developer or me, or my pocket, if you guys follow. I hope I didn't lose anybody.
for it twice.
So I had to pay for it twice, and to me, that's not right.
so were you compelled to hire the first third party, or were you just?
That was
frustrated?
part of, no, the first third party was part of the whole, my whole plan presented to the planning board. So
Was it
in order-
your responsibility to hire, or it should have been the town's?
No, it was mine.
Okay.
It had to be an engineering firm to lay out exactly what the design was and why it was designed this way. I don't know how else to word this, but more or less, I had to, it's above my pay grade, so I obviously had to hire an engineering company to design the road, let's say. Well, it didn't make sense to the planning board, so they passed it to the code enforcement office. The code enforcement officer said, this has nothing to do with me. Gave it back to the planning board. Because of that miscommunication between the two of them, now I was forced to hire an additional third party because the planning board felt as if my third party was either trying to slip something by or wasn't correct in what they designed, and the end result was exactly what my third party put in front of the planning board. So,
Jason, oftentimes it happens that the planning board will have their engineer or professional, whatever it might be, do a
Right.
peer review of whatever is presented by an applicant. That happens all the time,
well, why is that? Why am I responsible to pay for that?
because you're the applicant. And we want to be sure that whatever your engineer did, not to say that they did something incorrectly or tried to put something, but perhaps there was a mistake made.
But
And
isn't
it
that
ought to
the
be-
engineer's responsibility at that? But why
It
is
shouldn't
that?
be the town's responsibility.
But it
for
wouldn't,
that.
would it?
Yeah, it is, that's what you're suggesting.
Why?
Well, because neither
Who's
the
gonna pay for
plan-
the peer review?
Yeah, because they're not engineers.
Well,
The CEO doesn't have the expertise, he's gotta go someplace else, he's gotta hire an expert.
Right.
Happens all the time. I'm sure Phil can tell you that happens
Yeah.
all the time, and the applicant, the developer pays for that.
I think what
It's pretty common practice.
I think what I'm hearing from Jason, though, it doesn't sound like it was communicated that way to him, as you just described it in tone.
I agree, the communication was bad, I mean, Jim should understand,
Right,
have some understanding that
great,
something's put in front of him that
I
he
need-
needs.
right, this needs a peer review.
I need an expert to, because I don't know about
Exactly.
whatever the design issue might have been. And it's, not surprising, he's not an engineer.
right.
But it shouldn't have gone over to code enforcement. It should have been
Oh, what,
Jim right then saying, I need a peer review.
yeah, we need
so
a
therefore-
third-party peer review here,
Yeah.
and,
But he should have gotten in touch to me, should have gotten in touch with Jason and said, Jason, what your engineer has given us, we need a peer review because we don't understand it, and we need to make sure we do. So there is going to be a peer review, and there will be an additional
Right,
cost.
that
due for
communication needs to be had with the developer
Yeah.
and
And
the
the
planning
planner.
board, when
Yeah.
that, and/or the planner,
Right.
when that project is being,
Being
That's
done.
right.
I'm gonna need a peer
Right,
review,
that
and
should
you're gonna
happen
have to
after
pay
the
for
fact,
it.
it should, when
Right.
he's going through his final submission, or,
Yeah.
you know, before he gets final approval, the planning board, many, and to Tom's point, many times they'll send that stuff for peer review, and I've heard them say many times to applicants or to the board, we don't have peer review yet, we don't have, you know, Plumond or whoever it is, whoever the different, you know,
Okay.
haven't looked at it, and, you know, it's gone out to be reviewed, so as soon as I hear back from them, lighting, or, you know, whatever.
Well, I think that brings up another question, and I didn't put it on here, but I'd like to, you know, some of you have been involved in the planning board process, I have to a certain degree as well, but we need to continue to move this forward, so when the question comes up, we're gonna have a peer review of this, who's been responsible to make sure that that peer review gets done, regardless of what's happening, you know, it doesn't fall back on the developer, it needs to be in our office.
Right, usually, I always thought it was Tad that would
Okay.
move that stuff forward.
All right,
Not-
well, I wanna
not the
clearly
CEO.
define that within
Yeah.
the policy, that we're requesting that make sure that the planner stays ahead of that and keeps that moving. One of the things I don't like to see is, I know that you have a bunch of layperson people that are on the planning board, but I don't want to delay or slow down a process, if we can help it. Yeah, I mean, if there's something that we can do to keep this moving, then we should be responsible to do that. Number 5, I put all parties, CEO and planners will work to determine who will be responsible for oversight for all falls outside the CEO qualifications, and secure those unique services with a third-party review authority approved through the planning office. So what I'm trying to do is say there that, you know, we need to make sure that this gets done, and if we have to hire that person, they're hired, we know who it is, we've identified them. The developer knows who the third-party review is going to, because he's gonna have to pay for it, so he should know as well.
Not only for that, but the potential conflicts that might be in place.
Correct.
I mean, the engineer could work for, engineering firm we might use, could be working for the developers, and run into that on some occasions. They
Right.
go someplace else.
And that needs to be done in a timely manner, and all parties need to be aware of what's going on and what the time frame and cost would be.
I still think there's like a weird gray area there that, and maybe it's just me. It seems as if that they should be able to incorporate a fee up front, part of your application, X amount of dollars, whatever. 10%, 5% of the application fee goes to third-party review. If the third-party review is altered at all, then you are required to pay for the additional cost that, so if what I presented to you is exactly correct, and the third-party review claims it's exactly correct, that should be like a one-set fee, not hourly, and, because I'm telling you, that there's no accountability on the town planner, so I have numerous receipts of attorneys and engineers that, because he dragged his feet, I ended up spending way more than I should have on engineers and third-party reviews. There's gotta be a way where up front we can come with a flat rate that covers,
We don't have any control over it.
why, I don't see why we couldn't.
But we'd have to negotiate with an engineering firm and say it's a flat rate, and I don't,
And if
my
the
guess
plan
is
gets
that's gonna be a
altered,
difficult sell,
Yeah.
because they don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah, but even if the plan isn't altered, again, you're presenting a plan, you present me with a plan, and I look at that plan, I'm on the planning board, and I don't have a whole lot of idea what it's all about. I mean, I might know your engineer, and know that he's an excellent engineer, but I don't know what this is all about. So this has to go to somebody who's going to be able to explain it to me. Yes, I know you paid your engineer, but the people on the planning board aren't engineers.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that doesn't happen, I'm not saying it happens with every plan, but I'll bet it happens with just about every plan.
it happened 3 times with my plan alone. And I can tell you,
And to me, that shouldn't, if it's going to.
and I can tell you from a cost
Yeah,
standpoint,
yeah.
when you go into a project expecting to pay X amount of dollars, and you come out of the project and it's X amount of dollars plus,
Plus.
yeah, it's extremely frustrating to the developer that, one, the town planning board and the town planner especially didn't have his,
Act together.
yeah, it's,
That, and to me, that's frustrating for any developer. And I think that should be somewhere in one of these forms. I mean, when you're doing your forms for your plan, there's got to be something on there telling you that this could happen. That if this had to go to a third-party review, it could take longer and it could cost more.
even if it's an upfront retainer, Tom,
Yeah.
where I understand that,
That happens in some other communities, they get a lot of money up front.
but at least,
to cover those costs.
at least a developer going in to the town of Arundel to develop a piece of land that he owns knows right from the beginning, this project through the town of Arundel is gonna cost X amount of dollars. If I don't need that third-party review, I'm gonna get some money back, because the town didn't use the retainer that I gave them up front for peer review. But you can't expect developers to come to this town blind.
How do you set that rate
Yeah.
though? You know, it has to be, how would you set that cost for upfront costs? I'm just speaking out loud, I don't know how you do that.
And I've heard comments from developers, they don't like that, because all of a sudden money is out there, it's not being utilized, and it may not be utilized, but it's sitting in the town coffers.
And they're not
And why
gonna
not
get
just
back
pay
for a
for it
while.
when it's necessary? Sometimes it's not necessary.
Oh, exactly, yeah, I mean,
That's why, that's,
But that,
Tough one.
they
Yeah.
should know that up front. I mean, that is, to me, is something
I
that.
see both sides, I really do see
Yeah.
both sides. And in hindsight, I understand partly why it happened the way it did. It's just, it wasn't explained to me from the get-go. So at the end of
What
the
your
project, when you go
expenses
back
might
and, huh?
What your expenses might be.
Right, yeah, it's, and I'm just a small-time knucklehead
Yeah.
making it go, but it's tough to, create a spreadsheet and know where your dollars and cents are going when you make it to the town of Arundel Planning Board, it could be 10, 20, 30% more than what you expected. That to me doesn't make any sense. Why am I spending such good money for good engineers and then having to do it again at some point? I don't know, Phil, I guess I'm new to it, I just don't.
Yeah, no, that goes on all the time. When we do a project, we get a set of engineered plans, and that's what we build by. But most towns that we go in do exactly what we're talking about. Their engineer reviews all of the engineer's design, but I'm not involved very often in who pays for what.
Okay.
But I know there's always two sets of engineers that go over a plan,
Right.
almost every job we do.
And isn't the town's engineer responsible to ensure that what's on the plan is being built to that standard?
Correct.
So they're making visits to the property at times when the developer or the person doing the work is saying, look, I'm ready to put the gravel in the ground, and I'm gonna compact it, I need you here.
Correct. We're doing a project in Saco right now, and we have pre-construction meetings, and we've been informed that the town engineer, before we take the second step, he needs a 48-hour notice to inspect the first step.
I see.
And until he inspects first step, we can't go to step two. And I think, again, I'm not involved in that financial part, but I'm 99% sure my owner that I'm working for pays for that town engineer.
I certainly can't see the town paying.
And that's,
No.
and in
That's
some
where
towns,
it
they've got
goes.
their own engineer.
Right.
It's in-house,
Right.
so it's not as bad when you gotta go outside and hire independent.
That part of it was clearly outlined in the planning application. 3% of your cost is gonna go towards town attorney's review.
I see.
But the third-party review, now, where's the liability fall? So let's say something fails from an engineer standpoint. So now two sets of engineers have touched that. So who's responsible now? Is it the town or the hired engineer?
that point,
If
it
something
would,
failed, it seems to me.
it would be up to the
Yeah.
developer to prove that it was built according to the plan. And if it was built according to the plan, from there, I don't know where it would go.
Lawyers, that turns to go to court and,
Because
I mean, if you have two different engineers that disagree, then obviously, you know, you gotta come together and figure out, but if they both agree and if something fails,
9 out of 10, we would, if we see something that doesn't look right, we call the design engineer and say, hey, what about this? Take a look at it before we build it. And then they'll call us back and either say, build it or make these changes. That happens periodically.
I'm sure it does, yeah.
Well, you're giving me a lot to add to this. Let me take another stab at this thing.
Let me ask you too, I mean, why are we just confining this, this was supposed to be an enforcement policy essentially, right? Why are we shouldn't be confining it just to subdivisions. I mean, we have conditional use, which have conditions attached to them generally, that make sure, and even a straight permit that's issued by, Jim, I mean, if somebody is not in compliance with what they came forward and said, I want to build X, Jim goes out and looks and we're building Y, I mean, I think we need to think about enforcement.
yeah, it should be all planning board approvals, not.
All planning board or CEO approvals, I think.
Yeah.
And then we need to talk about, well, what happens if there is a violation, which is what got us here.
Yeah.
I mean, what should we have our CEO do? I mean, I think, you know, some type of notice, you know, I think we've already discussed, it's not the policy of this board. I don't think the consensus is we don't want stop work orders immediately being issued. We want discussions being had first.
Yeah.
And try to work the thing out. And if, you know, if somebody continues to ignore whatever condition it might be, or just pulls ahead and doesn't care, then it seems to me stop work issue.
That's typically the way.
Yeah, right.
So we should have something in here that clearly defines some sort of enforcement process, that once we find a violation, how we're gonna
I'm gonna
approach
do
it.
it, yeah.
And put some timelines to that.
Right.
as well. Okay.
So the gist of what I see here basically is, we'll use a subdivision as an example. The planning board, the chairman or somebody from the planning board reads the findings of facts, reads the conditions, all of that gets stricken, you know, it gets all written down. That piece right there that states all the findings of facts and all the conditions, that along with a sign-off sheet or whatever, goes to the CEO.
Correct.
The CEO will look at that and then,
There'll be discussion between the planner and CEO,
Right.
you know, what it all means, where it is.
yeah, because I don't want to add a whole bunch of extra work to the planner or the CEO. This is stuff that's already written. They ought to be able to just take that findings of fact sheet and attach something to Velma's point that has a date, that has a, you know, docket number, blah, blah, that tied this piece of paper with the condition.
I think they're doing some of these things now, but it's not clearly defined.
Yeah.
And we don't have it down as a policy, so, you know, it may be just prudent for us to clearly put it down, what the steps are going to be, and then all parties will know.
Yeah.
You know, even the applicant will have an understanding of what's gonna happen here.
Well, like, you know, we talked about time, you know, we said, you know, 2 business days. I think 2 business days, because the planning board meetings happen on Thursdays and there's a lot of Fridays that are off, I think 2 business days is just kind of short. You know, I think maybe we ought to go with 5 business days, and then, that's just my point, but, you know, 5 business days, and then at that point, you know, that has to be all done and given to the CEO in 5
Yeah.
business days.
I'd rather be the one that strikes while the iron's hot. So I'm not objectionable to something more than 2, but I don't think 5, I think 5 is too far. But
I mean, that's just the outside limit. I mean, they can do it anytime within that 5
Within.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just you gotta get it done within 5.
Right.
We encourage you to do it
Right.
So,
ASAP, right?
How many days is it after planning board approval? There's a certain amount of time that the developer's not supposed to start until after final approval.
If they
They
get
start the
final,
next day?
yeah, if they get final approval that night, they can start the next
Okay.
day. Yeah, that's Seen
they're
that happen before?
Yeah, so they're working the next day, and the planner's still got everything on his desk, and the CEO has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on this particular development, the developer was not reprimanded, but slapped on the hand because he started immediately after approval. Got approval Thursday night, and on Friday, there was work going on over there. And the developer got a fair amount of static about that.
Well, so let me quantify what I was saying. I think, depending what the conditions are. So if the conditions say, hey, you know, we need a letter of credit, then they really shouldn't start until they have a letter of credit. So, I mean, it all depends on what the conditions are. So if there are certain conditions, they shouldn't start work until all the conditions are met. Or some of these conditions have to do with as progress goes on, but if there are certain conditions that need to be met before you start, then obviously they should not start the next day. Case in point, in this particular issue, there was a discussion on that, so work shouldn't have started until that letter of credit, not letter of credit, but
Yeah, whatever.
security bond, right, until that was determined. And sometimes, and I've seen that happen with other developments, the same thing, that they hassle over exactly how we're gonna do this, you know, how we're gonna do this security. So to me, that needs to be done before they start their actual work.
Okay, I'll retitle it, I will add some more of these discussion points into this. I'll do another draft, provide it to you folks, and we'll just keep hanging at it until we get something that seems like a reasonable document.
And maybe a suggestion to the planner and the planning board is that maybe some boilerplate conditions on work, you know, that happens every time, that, you know, work cannot start until there are certain conditions that I met. Because, you know, some developers will look at it, yeah, okay, I'm ready to go, I wanna go start, you know, yeah, I'll go work on that letter of credit, but I'm gonna go start digging in it. And, cause these guys are anxious to go, right, they wanna get this going, right, and, you know, when things come to the planning board, most of the time it's not, okay, we'll take our time, it's always, you know, I need approvals, because it's money in their pocket, it's money they're spending, but there's money that, so they wanna get this stuff going. So I think it needs to be clear to the applicant, listen, you can't start until this, and to me, that should be read in a condition.
And we have to understand that the developer sometimes spends months in front of the planning board. They only meet twice a month. So, a project can be 3,
Months.
4, 6 months.
Yeah.
And after 6 months, this developer keeps dumping money in, and he wants to go.
Well, that's the other, you know, that's one of the things that that's one of the things that concerns me too, is that if we're working to get those approvals, and maybe I'm all wet, but when that developer walks into the planning office or has the first meeting with the planning board, there should be some sort of guidance right then, you know, these are the things that you're going to need, and these are the steps that you need to follow, so we can keep your application moving forward in a timely manner. And that information is embraced at that first initial meeting, so if you don't come back 2 weeks later and says, oh, we forgot to put this in.
Yeah, that happens quite often. And I've asked the planning board more than once, why can't they have a sheet with a list of things that you need to do when you come in? Lay that sheet on the table, and if everything is met, then we can move forward quickly. Instead of taking months, we could do it in weeks. But that sheet with the stipulations of what needs to be done has.
Don't we have a pre-application meeting with Tad?
I'm not quite sure. They do.
I mean, you should get all that information right there at that. I mean, that's what I did. I met with Tad. We wanted to do re-engineer the road or amend the subdivision.
Tad had a list.
He had everything, he told me everything I needed to have.
So there was a pre-application meeting?
Yeah, I set up a
And
meeting
there
with
should
Tad,
be-
so what do we gotta do?
He had put a list,
Okay.
he put a list, because we had, we had asked them a while back, applicant needs to know what's going on, so there was a list on, this is what you need, this is what you
I
need.
got it, I
boom,
mean,
boom,
I can
boom.
tell you,
So
there's
should we
something in
require that
existence.
pre-application?
Everybody should do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he can tell them, give them a heads up,
It's
it
it's
streamlines the
it's-
process.
A lot of times, I've seen a developer come in, or an applicant come in with the list fully filled out, and then somebody says, oh, well, we forgot this. So now you gotta go back and do this, this, and this, and it's another 2 weeks, and more money for the applicant.
I've seen that happen a lot.
Yeah, has happened.
That
I've
happens
seen that happen
all the
where
time.
somebody on the planning board says, oh, well, geez, I don't like that, and it's like, oh, come on, here we go again, now you know, and, you know, those guys need to understand that we can't be doing this, the developers or applicants that keep changing your minds, it has happened, definitely has happened.
They've developed that list with Ted.
But as long as
Yes.
as long as the planning board is working within the scope of the ordinance, that's what they should be looking at, you know?
But
So-
sometimes personal differences, you know, that scope of the ordinance, sometimes a personal preferences, personal goes above and beyond, I say, you know,
Yeah.
geez, I want arthritis instead of rhododendrons, or whatever. I mean, it's like, where the heck in the ordinance does it say that?
Yeah.
You know, just buffer it. So,
Okay.
Mr.
You
McDougal.
okay? You all right now?
Yeah, it's just- I mean, there's an easy way to take care of those issues, that's.
Don't get me going on buffers, please,
Yeah, yeah.
please, please, don't
Mr.
get me going on
McDougal
buffers.
came in, I was at one of the planning board meetings, and his island along Route 1, at Where's Motor Sales, he had a beautiful plan that he wanted to do. Somebody in that room didn't like what he wanted to do, they wouldn't let him do it. So instead of doing a beautiful thing in there that he had it on paper and it looked real nice, filled it with cement. Now, isn't that pretty?
yeah, it was,
Well, it sounds like I may be opening some wounds as I go through this process, but that's all right, we'll get through it.
We need to get it done, absolutely.
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
I
this
agree
works
with
both
that.
for
Yeah.
us,
Oh,
planning board, and obviously also the applicant, right? Because we want to make it, we want to help the applicant out, we want applicants to come here, we want them to get in, get out, get their projects going.
I totally agree.
The applicants have to, all of them have to have their heat healthy, I don't know if I said, heat held to the fire, so to speak. I mean, there's a number of them that come forward, I'm sure you experienced, Dan, trying to get away with the least amount they
Oh,
can.
yes.
Oh, absolutely, because it's, yeah,
All the time, and that's what fosters some of this,
yes.
Yeah,
you know, churning it up
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Because they won't do it right the first time, but as I said, sit down with Tad, he can tell you what you need to do, what you have to bring to the planning board. I mean, I got an amended subdivision too in 2 meetings.
I mean, I've seen it go very quick, and I mean, I don't wanna, because I don't know everything that happened, but I know that when I've seen plans that come in, that everything is, you know, it goes quick.
Right.
But if you leave anything to start questioning, that, oh my God, it just, and some of these guys just like to pick and pick and pick.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, we,
And of course, we want waivers.
waivers after, everybody wants waivers, because
Oh, yeah.
it's less cost to them on some of these
Right.
waivers.
waivers is less money.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, you've got a comment?
I do. It seems to me that when you have this all done, in just a short period of time here, hopefully, you'll be able to build a new town hall and nothing flat. Get it right through the process. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We would hope.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it with all with volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's for the back 40.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, well,
A
you
lot of
need-
volunteers there.
Okay. New business, rental of voting equipment.
Yes, I have I think I put a bill for rental of a piece of equipment in your folder. This came from the clerk, the town clerk would like to use the sweep account that was established for the purchase of equipment, of voting equipment, but as I understand, the state has not made a determination of what needs to be purchased, and So, we'd like to, in lieu of that, we're using rental of this material for voting. And that's what we have here, is that we have a request to take, $685 out of the, voting equipment sweep account, which has $22,270 in it, to pay this bill. Normally, we'd be able to pay that bill, perhaps within the existing line item, but because of this petition warrant article on the water, that was very expensive to the town of Arundel. From what I understand, it was somewhere between $1,800 and $1,800 or so dollars to get that, all that information done, because the petition is bringing forward, and then it's up to us to develop the article, the voting, do all the ballots, and have it ready, and they don't have to pay for that, so the town pays for it. So, Simone's really asking to utilize some of the sweep account to purchase this, to pay for this bill.
You need a motion for that?
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion's made and seconded, all in favor? Okay. Now let's work on the moratorium.
Yes, what you have before you is language that was provided by the town attorney in reference to the establishment of a moratorium on regarding recreational marijuana, retail establishments, and social clubs. This is what she's provided. Evidently, this must be something that her firm has provided to other municipalities to move. For us, it's unique. Now, it's not really unique. We're not a council form of government. We are a municipal elected selectmen, and therefore we need to go before the townspeople to gather permission prior to enactment of the ordinance. So the ordinance is here for you to take a look at, and if it meets your muster, if you feel it's appropriate at this point, I think it'll just be a matter of establishing or setting up a time for a special town meeting. And as Tom said, indicated earlier, I know that the planning board is going to have ordinance structure that's going to need to be there too. So maybe a good time to tie both of them together at the same time. I took a look at this. It looks straightforward to me. Some of the language, the date needs to be changed. Other than that, it looked fine.
Is that the most you can do, 180 days, is that, seems to be like
At
common
a
ground.
time.
Right, and then you would have the authority after that to do another 180 if you need to.
We don't have all the rules and regulations in place that time.
Can a town implement an ordinance that says no such use of this at all within the town? Is that something the town can do or not? That's above.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, the legislature's still got to
They still
write the
have to-
legislation. I mean, of course, they haven't finished the recount yet, so.
But a town can't choose to adopt that legislation or not.
No, I mean, I'd like to see what the legislature does. They're supposed to put the whole body regulations in place and to apply statewide, obviously. But just, you know, I've heard reports it's gonna take them a year to do that.
Really?
Yeah. That's what,
I know they're still counting the ballots as we speak.
I don't,
They haven't even finished that yet.
Well, I mean, you know, the pro folks are kinda, you know, they're itching to get going, and, you know, they're gonna push, so.
Yeah, and you know, right now, we're sort of in limbo. We don't have legislation, but then again, you know, you have this, the voters have technically approved this. What stops somebody from walking in the door and saying, hey, look, you know, I wanna get going?
So, but if we go, you know, if we put a moratorium on this, so the intent is, you know, really for the planning board to build something in the ordinance, but how can the planning board put something in the ordinance if we really get nothing from the legislature?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I think the 180, if you pass it, the 180 days, and then maybe additional 180 days, give you some time just to sit back and figure out what's gonna happen, and then act.
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, the way the planning board is moving on the ordinances could take a long time, but.
Well, we're obviously not alone in this, so
No.
we're not gonna be, you know, inventing the wheel. So we'll be able to get a lot of information from other towns. I mean, I saw Wells is doing this, but they're holding off until their annual town meeting in June to bring it to the voters, so they're not wildly concerned about it.
What do they do in the meantime if someone puts in an application?
I don't know what they'll do. Probably say no and
Yeah.
let it go through the process.
Right.
Yeah.
And which will
End up in court.
end up in court, and that'll take more than 180
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
So the way our ordinance is, you know, if it's not listed, then, you know, this,
It's true, but I mean, we have categories in the ordinance, agriculture, horticulture,
Yeah.
so other such
Somebody can
things.
make
And then I've got
arguments.
that little asterisk that says, if the code enforcement officer can't find something that's exactly like this, well, he can.
his discretion to, you know,
So
Yeah.
it's a possibility, somebody could make that argument, and it
Yeah.
could fly.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly, I'm certainly in favor of a moratorium, just so that we can, you know, work on, obviously, we have to wait for the legislature, but we need to have something in place so that, you know, whether you're against it or not, I think.
Right, I think you're planning appropriately, because, you know, you wanna be in a situation where you give the, planning board enough time to look at various things and come up with something that, perhaps will get approved, so.
Do we have to hold a public hearing on this?
No, because it'd be an open meeting. So we would have a special town meeting, it would be open, and people would be there for public discussion
Yeah, but
before voting.
But we've had public hearings for stuff like that before.
Well, let me double check.
Yeah,
on
let's
that.
check on that. We have to conduct a public hearing before we put this to the public.
Okay.
You can hold it on a snowy night.
There you go, Jack.
Jack will be here.
Okay. So, we're all set just to continue to sort of move forward with this thing. We're not ready yet, right now, but, okay.
All right, December 26th or 27th meeting?
Yeah, as you know, Christmas falls on the 25th, which is Sunday. Officially, we have the 26th, which would be our holiday. I really don't have a lot on, that I'm thinking about having on the agenda, but as I understand in the past, you folks have had a real quick meeting, perhaps on the 27th, like 5:30, to
Yeah.
sign any paperwork and sign the warrants and that kind of thing. And that's what I was thinking about, maybe having something at the town office on the 27th. We'll post it.
5 o'clock?
Is 5 okay? Or should we go 5:30?
What did we do?
From what I understand, before, you didn't go 7,
No,
but
No,
You-
we had it.
Try to-
maybe 6 o'clock, something like that. Oh, no, town hall was still open.
yeah, I mean, I remember being there at like 4.
Yeah,
I think it was just a signed payable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, payable warrants, yeah, that's all we would do.
so you want to have it early?
Yeah, it's fine. Fine with
Fine
me.
fine with you? 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
Let's go 4:30. That way the office is about ready to close, and you folks come in and we'll get together and we'll do it and be done with it. On the 27th, 4:30?
Just need 3 of us there, so.
Right,
Yeah.
it may be tough for me because I got a bunch of machines coming in, but as long as we've got 3. I'll try to make it 27th, right?
Yeah.
Can you, send out a reminder?
I will.
yeah.
Yeah,
I will.
forget my head somewhere for me, I'm really good.
Before we go to the payables, Pete put this on my desk, and put it on the agenda. It is from the National School Choice Week, it's a proclamation, and he said, not sure about what you may wish to do with this.
Yeah, I thought maybe you'd wanna talk to Katie about it. I don't know if
Yeah,
we actually do have school choice.
Now,
Whether we wanna make a proclamation on
I-
school choice when we don't, it
yeah,
doesn't exist.
and of
That's
course,
High school, high school.
Oh,
choice.
well,
it
yeah,
does.
but what they're thinking of school choice, they're talking about, where did we talk about?
Forgetting that, that's right, we do have choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's a lawsuit going on
yeah,
that we should let that play it out in the court.
yeah,
before
I
we-
do too. I just don't think that this is something that we even
Okay.
want to mention at all. They're talking here about the fact that a spotlight on effective education options, including traditional public schools, public charter schools, public magnet schools, private schools, online learning and homeschooling. And I think most of all of that is all done in junior high and high school, so. but
Yeah, it's a
I don't-
national organization that's
Yeah.
looking for various municipalities to have a proclamation that
Yeah.
you do endorse school choice.
I think that with
Came in,
everything
you know,
that's
today,
going
so.
on, that we should just table this.
Okay.
The school probably needs some improvement in results.
Yeah. Yeah. And someone asked a couple meetings ago why Arundel didn't have a Facebook page. So they said Lyman had a Facebook page, so I went on Facebook and looked up Lyman. Lyman has a very nice Facebook page. Why don't we have a Facebook page?
Well-
Linda Zook was gonna talk. to
Right,
you.
Linda Zook will be, Linda Zook and I have already spoken.
Yeah,
She's gonna be coming into a meeting, the first meeting in January, to shed a little more light on that,
okay,
okay?
all right, payables warrant.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Yes, payables.
Before we go into executive session,
Yeah,
there was a comment, I don't know if it was the last meeting, about the water fountains here.
Yes.
So I reached out to Kevin, I reached out to Katie because I didn't have Kevin's number. And if you notice, there are different signs on there now. So the reason that those were taped off is because they're running they're flushing the new water system out. They're flushing it through the filter system. I was surprised to see that it's still not, because according to Kevin's note, I thought everything was all set. But, so they're working with the new water system.
Yeah, the gentleman who does it for them, I can't remember his name, he came into the town office, because I'd asked him, See, Jack.
you too.
I'd asked inquiries about it, and he gave me a litany of what was happening and how it was happening, and, at the time, I also had him test the town's water, even though we don't drink it. He was doing some testing for the schools, so I had him take some samples from the town. And, we don't have any chloroform, but our arsenic levels are high as a result of the water, and where it is, so. But we're not drinking it, so everything's okay for
The
us.
whole town's arsenic levels are high.
Came here,
Not me?
last Wednesday night for basketball practice, and they were flushing the system. You had the spigot on that end of the building, full bore. It was just sheer ice all the way down into where everybody's parked. I came inside and I found a guy, I said, dude, you might wanna shut that water off while the parents are in and out. I mean, it's just glare ice,
Oh,
all the whole
wow.
parking lot, and
Yeah.
so he went running down to that end and shut it off, but, well, they pumped some water out of here, I know that.
I was surprised to still see it, because that was,
Well, I didn't realize that well's 450 feet down.
yeah, so, like,
It's a long way.
yeah.
So there's a lot of water that needs to be pumped in order to clean that system, so.
I make a motion, we go into executive session, 4056C, discussion on purchase of property in Limerick Road.
Okay, we need to turn off the camera.
Yeah, I will.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. At, whoops, what time? 8,
It is at 8:13.
8:30.